My name is Stack Banks. This is now the second episode of The Millionaire Millennial. I have two of my friends on here, Sierra and Madison. They can introduce themselves here in just a moment. But the focus and goal of today's episode was basically to show you guys out there in podcast and YouTube land that you can start a business, and we'll show you how to do it, hopefully within the next 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour, depending how good or bad we are at this. And that'll kind of give you guys an idea of what you can do to start your own businesses. And then you guys can just either hit our emails or get on anchor/millions, I believe, .fm. I'll have to give you guys the right access code to the podcast to find us. Yeah, exactly. So you guys let us know what else you want to see on the podcast and any questions you have. So I guess I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves. And I guess, I don't know, if anything, let people know how we sort of know each other or I don't know. However you guys want to introduce yourselves to the people. You don't necessarily have to get into like how we met or whatever. But.
Should we tell that story on this podcast?
That's
like our podcast. That's a story.
So that would probably be a better idea than is for us to tell the people like why you're doing this, right? Because you're coming on my podcast because you want to start your own podcast, but you want to be business owners and understand that you're doing it the correct way and essentially figure out how to monetize and be basically in action.
Right, because we could have just bought a mic and did this in the living room, but that wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted it to be more professional and, like you said, be able to monetize things. And
I mean, if we're going to do something, we might as well do it the right way and secure ourselves and, possibly profit from it.
Right. Exactly. So I guess first what we'll do is we'll introduce yourselves. So everyone who's watching this is going to be posted on YouTube. Probably a week after the actual podcast episode goes up. But for those of you who can see us, I will introduce. So this is Madison. Madison.
Hi, guys.
Say hi to everyone. This is Sierra.
Hello.
Yeah. So I guess you guys have your introduction. They are going to be doing their own podcast, Raw and Unfiltered.
RawUnfiltered.
RawUnfiltered, yes. Yeah. RawUnfiltered.
So this will be the...
Y'all ain't ready.
What's going to be the focus?
It's an understatement.
What's going to be the focus?
How we see the world, man. It's just a human experience.
Sex. Everything.
All of the above.
Okay. Human experience, sex. People's interests.
I can't reiterate.
That's what I...
It's going to be, it's not every episode, but,
Sprinkles.
Yeah.
Sprinkles.
Fair. So you guys are going to be, obviously they will also be on the Anchor app, and then you guys will probably immediately release to Spotify as well. Mm-hmm. And then look for them on other platforms as time goes on. This is all
work in progress.
Yeah, exactly. But everything will be up, so keep checking for them. You guys are
watching us start.
Yeah.
This is the beginning right here. This is Raw Unfiltered, the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Exciting. Okay, so I guess to first get into it, the girls obviously have been doing a lot of work outside of just this episode. It's not like they just hit me up yesterday and were like, "Hey, we're gonna do a podcast," and
We've done lots of research.
Yeah,
we almost made a mistake and then did not.
What was your mistake?
Almost doing a partnership.
Yep.
Okay.
Because
it ring-a-ding-ding sounds right.
Sounds just
but it's
right.
not.
Yeah, and so that's another thing too. You guys will come to realize, especially you business owners or future business owners, figuring out exactly what your classification as a business entity is going to be. Most people, excuse me, I'm like burping. most people typically will start with a sole proprietorship because that just sounds right. And some of you are probably gonna have to do your own research because some of the stuff we say might just be completely foreign to you. And we'll do our best to, I guess, explain that to the people who are unfamiliar with it. But typically when you start a business, you formulate, you have to basically tell whatever state that you live in what the type of business is. Not necessarily the business that you're in, but how you are taxed as a business entity. Most people don't realize the biggest expense that you will pay in your life is taxes, whether you're an employee or whether you're a business owner or whatever. And a lot of what happens with people where they feel there is a class difference as far as money and things goes, they feel like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, which is not saying that's not true, but you have to come to realize it's basically removing yourself from the tax bracket of a wage worker and putting yourself into the tax bracket of a business owner. And there are different classifications within that, some of them more beneficial than others. What happens a lot of times is people go, hey, you know, whatever their business is, they sell apples or, you know, I don't even know what, like something with glitter on it, like what, anything. Yeah. So I mean, businesses are essentially either a good or a service, right? So you either like do hair or you sell scissors to do hair. You do one or the other, right? And so
sharpen the scissors for the stylist, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Or something along those lines, right? And so you got to figure out first, I mean, a lot of it too is like figuring out like what's your tact in business and what you guys are doing. And that's a whole process we can probably get into before you do any of that though.
And just a side note here. Yeah. There is riches in the niches. So if you can find your little niche that's untouched, run with it.
100%. And then that's another thing too.
I don't know what our niche is. Not just yet.
Yeah, explain to the people that might not know what a niche is.
So
niche. We all three had a different answer.
I mean, I think it's people say it differently, but it's all spelled the same way.
Fair enough.
So it's basically if you can find an idea that is so unique, so
stands out. It's quirky. It's your personality.
Right. But it's even better if you can make it so it's kind of in an untapped market.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're literally getting into a niche that is literally it's like powder. It's like snowbirders and fucking like I want to go touch that pow pow. It's
right.
Like
it's untouched.
It's a different kind of
because it gets people excited and it gets people talking and that's what they want to be a part of and
then
spend
people
their money
start to
on.
Follow you and fucking start a trend and it's a whole different thing. So if you have something like that and you think that it is something like that, run with it.
And you don't, and that's something too, you don't necessarily have to be, you don't always have to like reinvent the wheel or have like.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Or like be like if there's a mousetrap, you don't have to make like the latest, greatest one that shoots lasers and whatever. It's a lot of business and good business. I won't lie. A lot of it is like luck and timing and like reaching out to the right people and being willing to go for things and mitigating your risk. But a lot of things too are just understanding what marketing is, what good marketing is, I mean, a lot of businesses make them pay, make them stay, make them tell a friend, and you have to perfect that process. Say that a lot. Yeah, and it's what like the big brands do really well. Mm-hmm. Some of them have problems in certain things, right? Just because you can make someone pay, make them stay, make them tell a friend, does not mean that you can retain or keep workers or maintain your supply line or that your accounting is good. There's a lot of stuff that can still fall through the cracks business wise that are just stuff you have to look after, but.
Well, it also kind of boils down to how you want your business format to be in the first place. You know, there's a lot of places that are strictly word of mouth and other places that have their appeal because it's so exclusive and less known about that brings people to it.
100%. And that's what you got to figure out, especially what your business is first and foremost. Like, what are you offering, whatever good or service? And then
what your clientele is what like who you're looking
who you're trying to reach,
who you're trying to
contact.
Because I mean everybody has money, but you're also kind of looking for a specific thing that because if you sell sparkle unicorns, you're not gonna try to sell that to that 60-year-old
kid down the block,
right? Or the emo kid down the block. You're maybe gonna try to focus on the 6-year-old girl, and you know what I mean. Maybe the teenagers and the stuff like that. So
maybe, but here's the thing too. Within business, you have to understand that like like you said, everyone's got money. So like that 60-year-old grandma or whatever, maybe she doesn't want it for herself, but she's going to get it for whoever. You have to figure out a way to
granddaughter, something like that.
You have to give them a reason to.
Yeah, you gotta market things effectively to put it in their face and make them understand that it's something. So one of the businesses I have, right, is a publishing company and a record label. And one of the things that you run into trying to reach people with music is people might like your song or listen to it when you show it to them, but it's very hard to get people to go like click on it on your Spotify or your Pandora or your SoundCloud, go to your YouTube. And a lot of it is because you're trying to break through their daily routine and go, hey, like stop paying attention to your kids, stop paying attention to your dudes, stop paying attention to your job that you have to go to and like go subscribe to my YouTube channel, make me part of your day. That's really, really hard because
I think it's easier when people actually send you a link, when they send you the direct thing. Like even when I'm on watching somebody's story on Snapchat, if it actually takes me to Spotify versus the 2 extra lazy seconds it takes me to just type it in, I'm still 10 times more inclined to click the link, go to it, at least hit play, maybe pause it, listen to it then, or I'm going to come back to it later.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's one of the many things in business. They call it like your click funnel. So like, how do you, like, if you've ever been on a website and you literally got to the point where you like click something, put it in like the bag or your shopping cart or whatever, and then you're like, oh fuck, I don't have my card on me, or I gotta like
save it for later,
whatever, right? And you like close the window down, and then you completely forget about it, and then an hour later you get an email that's like, hey, we noticed that you would put this in your shopping cart. Are you still interested in it? That is someone who understands their business, that there are going to be a million things along the way from the moment like I capture your interest with XYZ product to actually get you physically to spend money on it,
buy it,
to bring it home to you. There's a lot that can, I mean, you could be the whole way there and then the last digit of your card is the wrong one and you're like, oh shit, like I got to go to a nail appointment, I'm out of here, and you don't do it. So if the company never makes a point to have their software follow up with you, you're a lost lead, essentially.
Follow-ups are huge, especially if you get if it's a warm lead. You know, you definitely want to touch back to that, because back when I used to knock doors, you know, it's literally just having that repetition. And I think I set appointments a lot of the time and had sales strictly because of that, because I would make mental note. I would screenshot it. I would set myself reminders. When I told them I'm going to be back at a certain day and time, I would come back at a certain day and time. Regardless if it was hit or miss, it changes, because when you reach back out and you show that initiative, people tend to notice, because people get caught up with life and they forget things. People are complacent, you know, things happen. And so sometimes that second touch is what'll do it. And sometimes it's the third, fourth, and fifth. And sometimes, you know, to leave it at the one.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something too. You have to understanding how to qualify like who you're talking to. Like you can knock on someone's door and their child answers, and you're like, "Hey, you want to buy this flat screen TV?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, but I'm not the decision maker. I don't have the money." Like
that reminds me of that scene in Edward Scissorhands when the mom's selling Avon and she's got the little teenager in the room and she's got all these colors on and she's like, "The Bohemian Bliss look wonderful on you." And she like looks at her and she's like, "You don't think I have any money, do you?" Like, for real. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you can have the perfect pitch, but if you're pitching the wrong audience or you're pitching someone, and that's something too people have to realize. Sometimes people sell too hard because it's all they know. It's what they're comfortable and confident in. They're like, I
stick to the script.
Exactly. Right. And people do that a lot. Like whether you're working for the man or you're doing it with your own business or whatever, like they're like, I know this is a product and it can sell and whatever else, but you're like, dude, you're pitching to everybody and anybody, and 90% of the people that are coming your way like are literally not qualified.
It's a numbers game. You know, again, it's just about knowing your audience and kind of being able to, you know, if you can just have a conversation with a human, get a little more details, ask a couple questions, get involved, you can usually tell within the first minute or two of talking to somebody whether or not they're a viable candidate to begin with.
Yeah. And some people will string you out on that. That's like another, people like some people are just like, I'm here for the sales pitch. They just want to talk.
They want to hear it. They want to have an interaction. Yeah.
And that all, once again, that depends what business you're going to be in. What's your marketing approach? I've said this to you, Madison, quite a bit, and I don't know, you've probably heard me say it a couple of times, but you got to look at whatever, like you have to reverse engineer your goal, right? If your goal is to make $1 million, you got to go, okay, here's $1 million. Do I sell 1 million $1 hot dogs to get to that $1 million? Or do I sell 10 $100,000 gold bars? Right. And
there's a lot of different paths you can take it. You know, there's the path of least resistance, or there's, I don't know.
Some people are great at that. Some places like Nestle, Coke, fucking Oscar Mayer, whoever, they can sell $1 million $1 items, and there's a system in place for that. But they're these massive corporate giants. So
because they're known.
Yeah, well, I mean Coke has been around since like 100+ years.
Yeah.
So back when everything cost a penny, and a penny was a lot of money, they were getting those pennies and they could do something impactful with it, and they grew into what they are. What we're talking about is basically young entrepreneurs, people who are getting into this space who, at least my focus of the podcast is people, a lot of times you'll see people who are like, oh, I'm a socialist, especially here in the United States. And not to get too far into politics, whether you're left leaning or right leaning or liberal or whatever, to me, I don't have much of a dog in that fight. And maybe I can explain that some other day. But I do believe in capitalism, and I do believe in empowering how money empowers people, right? Like you're the best friend you could have is some dude who's like, hey, here's $10,000, right? Like that's a life-changing amount of money. And if you see someone who every time you see them, they're either giving you $10,000 worth of knowledge or like actual physical money, like it's gonna change your situation. It's gonna change like your view. Like it's hard to see someone say like I'm a socialist and they have $1 million in their bank account. Unless there's someone that just came into like a windfall of that money. But if you get a massive amount of capital, typically it tends to turn you into a capitalist, and you want to figure out how to make more money. You know what I mean? It's the lifeblood.
Takes money to make money.
Not necessarily though, because that's another like fallacy I would say that people are sort of told. Like it doesn't,
right? Because it goes back to the free water thing. It's one of those if you can have investors and
it just depends how you do it. It goes back to your business format, and if you find smarter ways.
Yeah, right. I think a lot of people's mentality and mindset has a lot to do. It's the programming that you've been taught, right? So like certain things you've been taught, like it takes money to make money. A penny saved is a penny earned.
Yeah, like that's an old one that older folks love.
Yeah, people love that, but those aren't necessarily true. That's the stuff that's been you've heard the book like Rich Dad Poor Dad or whatever.
Yeah, they did a updated millennial one of that too.
Interesting.
Yes, they did.
But I would say like stuff like that, like takes money to make money, penny saved, penny earned, like save your leftovers. That all that shit is like programming from like the poor dad. That's like people who do it
because they're the kids of the depression.
It's a different era. You know, they suffered differently.
Well, and even just regular people like you look at someone and go, oh, $1 million. A regular person goes like, oh my God, $1 million, I'd be set for life. Some dude who looks at $1 million and goes like, that's one Ferrari. That's one car to me.
What we were talking about earlier.
About what?
How you could be a millionaire and it's still not enough to
the Grant Cardone video.
Grant Cardone, yeah.
It's upsetting.
Grant Cardone.
You gotta be a deca-millionaire, y'all, just so y'all know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll explain this because we're jumping around and I'm not sure that
sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't know that our listeners are going to quite get what we want them to get out of it. So let me sort of bring that into focus, I guess, and then we'll double back to starting up your guys' business here on the show.
Okay.
The idea, or at least what I want people to start understanding, is that your think is too small. Like if you're like, oh, if I can only make $10,000 a year or $20,000 a year, or if I can, I don't know what people want a lot of different things, and entrepreneurship is not necessarily 100% the route to go every time. Like just because you want to be financially free does not mean you have to leave your 9 to 5, go start up some business, whatever that is, go through the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur to get there. There are plenty of people who go to college or get whatever training or do whatever, or partner with someone, or there's lots of people who just sort of live these lives where it's almost like they never really have a real job. It's just sort of like they bounce from thing to thing, or it's like a hustle or whatever. Like I met a kid last night who, what does he do? So he makes beats, like instrumentals and stuff. I'm probably gonna sign in my label, but he was in college and I don't remember what, he was like a golfer or something like that. And so he came home or his dad, I think, was trying to get like a golf cart and found out that to get a golf cart, it's like $16,000, right? And from whoever. And he's like, there's no wholesaler that I can hit up and get one for cheaper or whatever. They're like, oh no, like there's no one who does that, who houses the carts. So what does his dad do? Like starts buying carts wholesale from the cart manufacturer, puts it, like rents a space from a car dealership, puts these carts in there. And then his son came home from college and like sort of hustled his way into being like a cart dealer. And now because of COVID and how like the supply chains and shit are backed up, they've got orders out the ass, and this kid is now like gets these carts in and then makes them like golf cart ready. And I was like asking like, who's your customer? And he's like, well, some of them are guys who want to go play golf, who like live on a golf course, and half the others are just old farts who like saw their neighbor
just want to putz around on one,
saw their neighbor get one, think it's swaggy, and they want one too.
Think it's
yeah, it's like it's a keeping up with the Joneses thing.
Look at me, it goes 20 miles per hour.
But he and I were talking, and he those are the customers that he hates dealing with because they're not the ones that like he went and got and like brought in and
because they're less inclined. They don't have like more a need for it. It's a want.
Yeah, 100%. Right. And so you have to understand with businesses, you're gonna have
both kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna have a bunch of different customers of different variety. You're gonna have clients. You're gonna have hopefully if you get to that point, employees and things you have to manage, and then the business itself. Mm-hmm. So to not get too far off in the weeds at the moment, because the focus of this episode was at a minimum, what we were going to do is sort of talk about the different classifications of businesses that there are, and then sort of show people why you're picking the ones that you are or the one that you are, and then show them how easy it is to essentially just register and do it within 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, we're skipping around, but these are a lot of stuff that at some point we can maybe like delve further into these ideas, or as this podcast goes on right now, we can still do that. Just sort of, we're going to try and bear in mind that everyone listening probably does not have the same depth of knowledge and or degree of understanding of what we're talking about as maybe we do. There are people who are probably like balls deep in business right now who feel this way and might get like a lot out of what we're doing, or who are just starting out. But there might be some terms that you guys aren't going to understand or necessarily know. I would encourage you guys to do your own research. And look into, there's a lot of people within the industry as well that I will, or I have a tendency to sort of parrot their thoughts on business, but that's just because of my own research. So guys like Grant Cardone, you're big into Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I like Dave Ramsey too.
I think he's great as well. A lot of business and how would you put it? Like the school of thoughts on business come from just sort of different takes on things like debt and really like the structuring of a business. Which we can get into at some other point. But so let's sort of bring it, I guess, back to what we have going on. So the girls are starting a podcast, but more so than anything, we had kind of agreed that you guys were wanting to start essentially like a multimedia company.
Yes.
Because they're doing the podcast. Eventually you plan to sell merch.
Yep.
You're going to have a website. Mm-hmm. Someday, hopefully you guys will do like meet and greets, things like that. There's going to be a lot that goes into it, but obviously we got to pick a starting point.
Baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, and this is for you guys that are out there listening or watching. That's part of it, is you don't have to have the most perfect business plan. What you can sort of do is go like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to get into. And like I said, start reverse engineering what you see from that. And a lot of that, like the podcast, right? Like a lot of what me personally, and what I'm sort of trying to take from it is like the Joe Rogan style podcast, and then other successful like audio visual captures or whatever, however you want to call it. I'm not great with my words at the moment. But so things sort of get diluted though once you start adding people into the mix, right? And this is another thing too. I would strongly encourage you guys, if you're going to have a business partner, make sure that there's someone that, number one, you work well with, I would say, right? And then you guys can probably speak to this a little bit better than I can, because you guys have decided to go into business together. But you definitely want to have like a strong business partner. You want someone that's going to kind of like pull the weight that you don't know how, or that you're not best equipped to, right? Like you guys obviously are very similar, but yin and yang in my personal opinion.
Yeah, we can still balance each other out and bring something different to the table.
Yeah. And and perfect example too, like I remember talking to you in your guys' living room, and I was talking to you at some point about something, and you're like, oh yeah, Sierra's in her bedroom and she's like on the laptop finishing up the website for whatever. You want a partner who's going to be like proactive in that regard, like someone who's just invested in the business as you. Because I find a lot of times people are super excited about an idea, right? Like they want to start a bakery or something like that. And they start doing that and enlisting the help of family and friends. And the family and friends are like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you're trying to like force these people into a role to help you, where if anything, it's like, dude, cut your losses, and you might be better off either like doing it on your own or like hiring an employee. Mm-hmm. But just for the sake, I guess, of example and argument, the girls here are going to be doing so you're not doing a partnership? What are you guys doing as far as? No,
we're not going to do a partnership. We're going to do a multi-member LLC. Okay.
And so for anyone that doesn't know what that is, there's a couple different business classifications. There are sole props or sole proprietorships, which 99% of people who go into business essentially do that. They decide to quit their 9-to-5. They want to sell, I don't know what, like bead necklaces or something like that. And they start doing that, and they realize they're going to have to pay the man because money starts coming in. They got to pay their taxes. They go get an accountant or whoever, and the accountant goes, oh, you're a single person. You're a sole proprietor. Because it sounds correct. It sounds like, oh, I'm a sole person.
Right, just like how partnership for two people sounds correct. Because you're like, oh, here we go. This is it, bud.
It's a lot less flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then, exactly. But then you start looking into the U.S. tax code, and the U.S. tax code defines these businesses in different entities, right? So you have, and I'm like fuzzy because this is stuff I did with my businesses like a year or some odd ago now at some point. So off the top of my head, I might say something incorrect. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in the comments who will correct us. But you have typically your you have your sole proprietorship, which is just singular business entity, singular person. The government goes like, all the money that you make from this job is money you pull in, and we tax it at essentially the same rate as we would that you're a W-2 employee. It's, in my personal opinion, and don't get me wrong, because there are plenty of businesses that probably need this tax classification for whatever reason. I don't know why, but there's probably someone that this situation works well for. And they're classified as a sole prop, and they get taxed a certain way, and that's that. And then you have what are called LLCs, or limited liability companies. And what those do is they offer an extra level of protection within the company to separate.
It's like a bumper.
Exactly. So it's like if you are selling those beaded necklaces and someone's kid eats one and they choke and die, as a sole prop, someone can come in more than likely, 100%. And there goes your house, there goes your car.
Because you had everything on it.
Right.
Right. And even if you weren't, even if you didn't have these things particularly tied into your business, because you did not have your business set up in a way that there was a definite separation of your personal assets or liabilities or whatever and the businesses, you're fair game.
Yeah, you get yourself into a lot of trouble. You know, there's a lot of legalities that if you don't do your research and you don't actually understand what you're signing the dotted line to, you know, it could be too late before, now you have, again, all these lawsuits, all these problems, people coming after you.
Yeah. And think about this too. There's lots of people that start businesses that necessarily aren't even like beaded necklaces stuff. It's like, say, like you have children, right? You very well yourself. And you guys can't see him on right now, but Glizzy is my cameraman, or Hamadi is his real name. I call him Glizzy. It's his nickname, but he's in the corner filming right now, but you're getting ready to start a daycare business. And it's something that, out of his home, and he's going to be doing it because he's got younger brothers and sisters. It's a good situation, not only for your family, but for you as a business owner and tax situation. But say Glizzy were just to go in and just do the sole prop thing, and he starts bringing in other people's kids, something happens to those kids, and it's in his home, instead of it being something where something happens and there's a separation and you have your insurance, it's going to pay for it, take care of it, everything. It's like they're going to come for your car, they're going to come for your house, they're going to come for your mom, it's everybody's connected to the situation. All your
assets, all your everything.
And then your business is shut down before it even got off the water.
Yeah. And then on top of it, you're bankrupt and potentially facing jail time, prison time,
depending on how bad it was. Exactly.
Or if you can even afford to like pay whatever they're asking, because they might go some further legal action or whatever that is. So that is sole prop. Sole prop does not offer a whole lot of legal protections, and they don't offer a whole lot of tax protections. So an LLC allows you to create what is typically called the corporate veil. And the corporate veil is what is essentially what it sounds like. You get a veil of essentially the face of a corporation going like, this entity is separated from
the middleman.
Me. To a degree,
protect you.
Yeah, from me as the person, because that's another thing too. You could own that business and then say you get to the point where you're successful and you're like, I want to step away from the business. I want to hire managers. I want to hire a CEO. I want to hire someone who's going to run the day-to-day operations of this business, and say they mismanage the business, right? You still own the business. It allows you to get rid of people at will. There's a lot of things the corporate veil allows you to do, and being an LLC that it allows you to do. And then really, once you've decided whether you're going to be a sole prop or an LLC or there are also called S corps and C corps. Those are essentially tax definitions within the limited liability space. And those are taxed differently. There are also partnerships, and then what you guys call the multi-member LLCs, where basically you've created a business entity and there are, in writing when you start the business, people who are entitled essentially to certain amounts of the business. And that's something that you work out within your guys's business structure, your operating plan and all that sort of stuff, and your corporate bylaws, if you have that. So you guys have done a multi-member LLC, meaning one of you has 51% of the business, someone else has 49 or something like that, or it's 49.5 or however you guys did the numbers. Essentially and within that too, you guys can write within the rules of your business who has what power and what responsibility and what positions you guys hold. And you guys have to understand too, when you start a business, all of these things can change day to day. Say you started a sole prop Monday. By Friday, you could go to your accountant or whoever, or do it all on your own. This is what we're going to try and hope to show you guys. And within a week's time, become an LLC or an S corp or a C corp. It's just understanding what that process is, how to go about doing it, and making sure that you're doing it correctly. So I guess we can just sort of get started as far as some of like the basic business stuff.
Cool.
So you guys have picked out a name for your business, right?
Yeah.
So what is it going to be?
RawUnfiltered.
So that's going to be the name of the business overall, Raw and Unfiltered, or do you guys want to be like
I kind of
M&S Industries?
Honestly, I was thinking about it, and I kind of like Raw Industries. But
check this out. This is like a moment on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a separation to it, and you need an actual business name versus what it's just for,
because
then
remember the that toy that I had, and their company name was Tug and Pull Industries.
Oh yeah, fucking heinous.
Exactly. Because I'm sure that was their business name, but like literally, it was.
But that wasn't the product.
No,
it was just Tug and Pull.
It was a kid's toy, and I read the back of it, and it's like Tug and Pull fucking Industries. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? It's wild. So, not that Raw isn't Raw Unfiltered. It's just a mouthful. You know,
that's true.
So that's what I was thinking is Raw Industries. It's simple. It's quick. It's fucking.
I'm done.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool. Raw Industries.
Raw Industries.
Okay, cool.
But the podcast is Raw Unfiltered.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the actual business
and
itself.
That will separate it.
What we're
I like
listed
that
under.
too, because then that separates that.
Because it does kind of separate it a little bit and have that professionalism for actually the business itself.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too that you guys have to understand. When you start a business, whether it's an S Corp, a C Corp, there are also things called holding companies, which allow you to basically put like multiple businesses under one company, and that allows you a level of like privacy if you want it. There's a lot of like larger companies that do that. They'll have 6 or 7 different companies that are owned by one company, and then whoever owns that one company, it's all like very secretive, but it's how they operate. What was I saying about that? I forgot why I got into that. So that's the way I'm set up. I'm set as like up as a holding company with multiple what are called disregarded entities underneath it, which are essentially multiple S corporations.
Yeah.
You guys are more than welcome to, and anyone out there, you could basically make a holding company and have S corporations underneath it, or C corporations, or a mix of the two, or you could have what's known as DBAs, doing businesses as, where you basically register with whatever state you're with, give them a name of like the podcast, right? The podcast will have a working name that most people will know it by. People are going to deal with it, say write checks to the podcast, whatever, because they come in to do whatever, or you sell t-shirts or merch or whatever. And then all of that flows through that entity, right? But your multimedia company is named something else. Like the podcast is just one thing you do. And then videography is one other thing you do. And the merch is like one other thing you do, or whatever. Or say you guys decide to get into I don't know if anyone will in listening out there in podcast land or whatever will know what cryptocurrencies and NFTs are, but that's a whole brand new space as well. So it might be something that space or end of your business becomes completely separate from the podcast itself or whatever, and you want to have a way of essentially dealing with that.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Okay.
Does us registering as an LLC not give us the ability to have those disregarded entities under us? Okay,
no,
so we don't have to necessarily be an S corp or a C corp.
I believe with disregarded entities that actual definition comes from the S corps.
Okay.
But if you just want to be an LLC and have multiple businesses or multiple, essentially let's call them storefronts. Right. Like whether they're digital or in real life, you can just register those as DBAs. Doing businesses as. So you could have, say, I'm just going to like make up names here. So like S&M Industries, right? Is like your guys's corporate thing. And you want to do the podcast. You could literally create a DBA of Raw and Unfiltered, which is owned by, what did I say? S&M Industries. Right. And then say you want to open a pizza shop the next day. You just open up another DBA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And really all the DBAs are you registering these names with
separately than S&M kind of thing.
Well, so you will create
under S&M,
yeah,
right?
Under S&M. So you'll create
it's separate
S&M
from the other business initially.
Well, so that's why it's a DBA.
It's because it's under.
The DBA business gives it the definition of it being.
Okay.
It's S&M Industries doing business as Raw and Unfiltered podcast,
right?
Or Raw and Unfiltered pizza company,
slice,
right. So, and that's part of like as business owners figuring out what, like, how do we roadmap what our business is doing, right? Because a lot of people just get into business, right? They're like, oh, I want to sell red circles. They get in the market and they start selling red circles and they just get fucking slaughtered. Nobody wants to buy red circles. And after a while, they're like, well, shit, maybe if we make some like blue squares, people will want those. And then a couple people buy blue squares and like, okay, cool, shit. And then next thing you know, you're selling like green octagons, completely different than like what you had started with, right? And then you're like, well, shit, we're still like...
Things grow.
Yeah, we're still mom and pop's red square shop, right? And you're like, well, shit, we need to be...
This green octagons.
You know what I'm saying? So like these things, all the things we're talking about, you essentially would get onto whatever state you live in. This just to clarify, I'm talking to the people in the United States. I do not know international business law. There are a lot of places I've heard, like in London, where it's, or not London, the UK, where this is an even more simple process.
Interesting.
Yeah, certain places. There are places that are like tax havens and things like that, where they're like,
very interesting.
Yeah, they're like, we don't care, do whatever, like just like send us our money when you want to send it. But in the United States, at least, typically what you would do is you get on the Secretary of State's website, and they will. We are here in Idaho, which is a very red state, and they are very. They're definitely capitalist out here. They take a pretty good stance as far as not taxing the crap out of businesses. They're not overly like permit and licensing crazy out here. There's certain things that typically is like...
Yeah, they're pretty lax.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that typically with like, if you're going to be like a realtor or cut hair...
Certain things, yeah.
Certifications in general.
Yeah, exactly. Because don't understand too, you cannot just like go throw yourself into bit. Like if you're trying to sell food, don't just be like, hey, Stack Banks and the girls told me that like I can stand on a street corner and sell 1 million hot dogs at $1 a pop, and that's all I got to do. And I'm a
somebody might say something.
Yeah, make sure you go get your permits. Make sure that you're like getting all your city permits. There are things depending where you live at that you may have to go above and beyond.
Different qualifications,
exactly. But typically, all you got to do. Get on your Secretary of State's website, and they should have something that says something to the kin of like business services or business filings, things like that. Are you trying to holler at Glizzy?
Yeah. Can you type your password back in? It locked on us. Thank you. Oh.
There's a lot.
Fancy.
There's a lot of different websites out there, and there's a lot of different states, and each one will do things differently. Typically, the business filings and things like that are fairly straightforward. I cannot speak to every single one of them. And there are certain, what do I call it? Like businesses like LegalZoom, stuff like that will do this sort of thing for you. Typically, they're going to charge you like $5,000 to do it, or $10,000 just to like set up your S Corp or whatever. The goal of this podcast...
And that's a big corporation that you can just log in online and do that. You might be able to find somebody locally to do it for a cheaper price, kind of.
100%.
Right.
But even at that rate, like, if you can teach them how to fish, like, just do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, less middleman. Oh, I want to be cutting. I want to be... No, if you want to do it and have it be your thing, but
I get that. I just understand that some people are going to
feel comfortable
different ways and don't feel comfortable with technology or whatever it is. So if that's the case, there's other ways to do it.
Get an accountant.
Yes.
If you're worried, like, not to knock LegalZoom or whoever, like their businesses, and I won't speak on any business or anyone that I haven't done business with and had a bad experience with. I will not talk down on them because they could do amazing things. Potentially. I don't know. But I will tell you guys this. If you want to start a business and you don't have $10,000 to go throw at LegalZoom or whoever, get $500, $600 together, whatever. Go talk to an accountant. Typically, they will give you a free consultation. They're not going to make you pay them. What they'll do is go, hey, I will kind of sort of help you get into business, and then hopefully you do well. And then along the course of the next year, right? Say you start your business in January, right? And then tax times, I think February, something like that, January, February for businesses. I don't remember off the top of my head. But you start a business in like, let's say February, right? You don't have to worry about, say you start your business at like tax time. Say tax time's in February. Start your business in February. You have a whole year until you need to worry about your tax situation. So most accountants, if they're good, will go, okay, cool. I'll give you kind of a guiding hand in making sure that we get your business set up and you're good to go. And then when it's time for you to pay me to do your business taxes, hopefully you have become profitable enough in that year that the $500 or whatever that you're going to pay me to do this isn't anything. Or at least you bank on it in your head. And hopefully, I mean, and this is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. Once again, everyone needs to do their own research in whatever state that you're in. Consult with your own accountant, your own tax professional, whoever else. Hi, this is Stack Banks. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Millionaire Millennial. It looks like this episode's ran a bit too long, so we've cut it into multiple parts for your listening pleasure. If you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, just click next in whatever app you're using. And if you're not following us on social media, please give us a like and a follow on TikTok at The Millionaire Millennial, Instagram at Millionaire Millennial Podcast, or at our website, www.anchor.fm/millions. Hi, this is Stack Banks. Thanks for listening to The Millionaire Millennial. Be sure to check out our social medias and give us a share, like, and follow on TikTok at The Millionaire Millennial. Our Instagram is The Millionaire Millennial Podcast, or on our website at www.anchor.fm/millions.